5 famous musicians who passed away in 2025. Remembering the legends. Sly Stone. The visionary leader of Sly and the Family Stone passed away on June 9, 2025, at the age of 82 at a care facility in Los Angeles. His death marked the end of an era for one of music's most revolutionary figures, a man who fundamentally changed the sound and social consciousness of popular music during one of America's most turbulent periods. Stone was a transformative figure in the late 1960s and 1970s, blending funk, soul, rock, and psychedelic music to create an explosive sound that had never been heard before. His hits like Dance to the Music, Everyday People, Thank You Fallatin Be Myself Again, and Family Affair weren't just songs. They were cultural statements that broke down barriers between genres and spoke to the possibility of unity during the civil rights movement. What made Sly and the Family Stone revolutionary wasn't just their music but their composition. The band was racially integrated and included both men and women at a time when both were uncommon in rock bands. His sister Rose Stone and trumpeter Cynthia Robinson were integral members, making the Family Stone one of the first major acts to showcase gender equality on stage. They lived the message of everyday people, that different strokes for different folks could create something beautiful together. Stone's innovative approach to music production and arrangement influenced everyone from George Clinton and Prince to Outkast and The Roots. His use of funk rhythms, layered vocals, and socially conscious lyrics created a blueprint that shaped decades of music. The slap bass technique, popularized by bassist Larry Graham and the Family Stone, became foundational to funk and later hip-hop music. His performance at Woodstock in 1969 became legendary. The band's electrifying set in the early morning hours turned the massive crowd into a unified celebration, with Stone's performance of I Wanna Take You Higher becoming one of the festival's most memorable moments. The performance showcased Stone at the peak of his creative powers, commanding a crowd of hundreds of thousands with pure musical genius. Before we continue with this important tribute, if you haven't already, smash that like button and subscribe to Rise to Fame. In here we celebrate music history and honor the artists who changed the world. Join us by hitting subscribe right now. Tragically, Stone's later years were marked by struggles with substance abuse and mental health issues that caused him to retreat from public life for long periods. His battles with addiction led to missed performances, canceled albums, and decades of relative obscurity. Despite these challenges, his influence never waned, and younger generations continued to discover and celebrate his groundbreaking work. In recent years, there had been a renewed appreciation for Stone's contributions, with documentaries, tribute concerts, and samples of his music appearing in contemporary hip-hop tracks. Artists from Kendrick Lamar to Anderson, Pac cited him as a major influence, ensuring that his revolutionary spirit lived on in new forms. Stone's death prompted an outpouring of tributes from across the music industry. Questlove of The Roots called him the architect of funk and the prophet of possibility, while Lenny Kravitz stated, Sly showed us that music could tear down walls and build bridges. He proved that a band could look like America and sound like the future. Brian Wilson, the legendary co-founder and mastermind of the Beach Boys, passed away on June 11, 2025, at the age of 82. He died peacefully at his home in Los Angeles from complications related to the dementia he had been battling for several years, surrounded by his family and the music that defined not just his life, but the sound of an entire generation. Wilson's impact on music cannot be overstated. As the principal songwriter, arranger, and producer for the Beach Boys, he crafted some of the most sophisticated and innovative pop music ever recorded. Known for creating what he called teenage symphonies to God, Wilson revolutionized pop music with complex vocal harmonies and experimental studio techniques that pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible in popular music. Songs like Good Vibrations, God Only Knows, Wouldn't It Be Nice, and California Girls combined intricate harmonies, unconventional instruments, and studio techniques that had never been attempted before in popular music. He treated the recording studio as an instrument itself, layering sounds and experimenting with tape speeds, unusual microphone placements, and innovative arrangements that other producers would spend decades trying to replicate. His 1966 album Pet Sounds is widely regarded as one of the greatest albums ever made, consistently ranking in the top 5 of every credible best albums list ever published. The album influenced everyone from the Beatles to contemporary artists across all genres. Paul McCartney has repeatedly cited it as his favorite album and the direct inspiration for SGT. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, creating a creative competition between the two groups that pushed both to their artistic peaks. Wilson's use of orchestral instruments in rock music, his sophisticated chord progressions borrowed from jazz, and his ability to convey deep emotional truths through seemingly simple pop songs revolutionized what popular music could be. He proved that commercial success and artistic ambition weren't mutually exclusive, that you could create music that was both accessible and profound. We're only halfway through this tribute to 5 legendary musicians. If you're finding value in this content, please subscribe to Rise to Fame and ring that notification bell. We work hard to bring you comprehensive contents and famous history content of celebrities and more. Show your support by subscribing now. Wilson's genius came at a tremendous personal cost. He struggled throughout his life with mental illness, including schizoaffective disorder, severe anxiety, and auditory hallucinations, conditions that were poorly understood and inadequately treated during his most productive years. His well-documented battles with Dr. Eugene Landy, the controversial therapist who controlled his life for nearly a decade during the 1980s, and his struggle with substance abuse are testament to the challenges he faced while creating transcendent music. The story of Smile, the legendary lost album that was supposed to follow Pet Sounds, became one of rock music's greatest mysteries. Wilson worked on the album in 1966 and 1967, pushing himself and his collaborator Van Dyke Parks to create something even more ambitious than Pet Sounds. But the pressure, combined with his deteriorating mental health and reported bad experiences with LSD, led to the project's abandonment, leaving only fragmentary recordings and stories of what might have been. Despite these struggles, Wilson continued to create and perform well into his 70s, releasing acclaimed solo albums that showed his genius remained undimmed. His 2004 completion and release of Smile, nearly 40 years after it was abandoned, was hailed as a masterpiece and earned him a Grammy Award, proving that the vision that had eluded him in 1967 was still viable and still brilliant. His death prompted an outpouring of tributes from across the music world. Artists from Bob Dylan to Billie Eilish praised his influence, with Dylan stating, "Brian Wilson's music will echo through eternity. He taught us that pop music could be art, that studio recordings could be symphonies, and that vulnerability could be strength. The world is quieter now without his genius." Wilson's legacy extends far beyond the Beach Boys' surf and sun image that defined their early years. He expanded the possibilities of what popular music could achieve, influenced countless musicians across multiple generations, and created a body of work that will be studied, performed, and cherished for as long as music exists. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness and pioneering frontman of Black Sabbath, died on July 22, 2025, at the age of 76, just weeks after performing a final farewell concert in his hometown of Birmingham, UK. His death, which occurred at his Los Angeles home surrounded by his wife Sharon and their children, marked the end of one of rock music's most legendary and unlikely careers. Osbourne's passing sent shockwaves through the music world, as fans had just witnessed what would be his final performance, an emotional homecoming show in Birmingham that featured surprise guests, career-spanning hits, and Osbourne's trademark combination of menace and humor that had defined his stage presence for over 5 decades. As the frontman of Black Sabbath, Osbourne helped create heavy metal music itself. Formed in Birmingham in 1968, Black Sabbath pioneered a dark, heavy sound built on doom-laden riffs, occult imagery, and Osbourne's distinctive wailing vocals. Songs like Paranoid, Iron Man, War Pigs, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath created the template for heavy metal that countless bands would follow. What many casual fans didn't realize was that beneath the shock rock imagery and tailies of biting heads off bats and doves, Osbourne and Black Sabbath were creating genuinely innovative music. Tony Iommi's guitar work established the heavy metal sound. Geezer Butler's bass lines and lyrics added depth and social commentary, and Osbourne's vocal melodies made the heavy music accessible and memorable. This is Rise to Fame, where we celebrate music legends and honor their contributions. If you appreciate deep dives into music history and tributes that go beyond the surface, subscribe to our channel now. We're building something special, and we want you to be part of it. After being fired from Black Sabbath in 1979 due to substance abuse issues that had reached a breaking point, Osbourne's solo career could have easily ended in obscurity and tragedy. Instead, he launched one of rock music's most successful second acts, recruiting virtuoso guitarist Randy Rhoads and creating a sound that was both commercially successful and musically sophisticated. Albums like Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman produced classics including Crazy Train, Mr. Crowley, and Flying High Again, establishing Osbourne as a solo star who could stand alongside anyone in rock music. The tragic death of Randy Rhoads in a 1982 plane crash could have derailed everything, but Osbourne persevered, continuing to work with talented musicians and releasing successful albums throughout the 1980s and beyond. Beyond his status as a heavy metal icon, Osbourne became a household name and unlikely cultural phenomenon through the reality TV show The Osbournes, which aired from 2002 to 2005. The show revealed Osbourne as a devoted, if bumbling father and husband, dealing with everyday domestic situations while swearing constantly and struggling with technology. It humanized the Prince of Darkness and introduced him to audiences who had never heard Black Sabbath. The show's success was unexpected and transformative, making Osbourne one of the most recognizable people in the world, and proving that reality TV could showcase real families with genuine love and dysfunction. His mumbly speech patterns, confusion with everyday tasks, and obvious affection for his family made him endearing to millions who might have been terrified of his stage persona. Osbourne's later years were marked by numerous health challenges, including a near-fatal ATV accident in 2003, a staph infection in 2018, and a Parkinson's disease diagnosis that he revealed publicly in 2020. Despite these setbacks, he continued to record music and perform when able, refusing to let age or illness stop him from doing what he loved. His final album, released in 2022, featured collaborations with contemporary artists and showed that his voice, while weathered, could still deliver the emotional impact that had made him a star. The album's themes of mortality, legacy, and defiance felt particularly poignant in retrospect, as Osbourne confronted his own limitations while refusing to surrender to them. Tributes from across the music world emphasized both his musical influence and his personal warmth. Tony Iommi, his bandmate from Black Sabbath with whom he'd had a complicated relationship over the decades, stated Ozzy was irreplaceable. His voice, his presence, his humor, there will never be another. Heavy metal exists because of what we created together, and I'll miss my friend. We're near the end of this tribute, but before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe to Rise to Fame and hit that like button. We create content that honors music legends with the depth and respect they deserve. Join our growing community now. Roberta Flack, the Grammy-winning soul and jazz vocalist whose velvety voice gave us timeless classics, passed away on February 24, 2025, at the age of 88. She died peacefully at her home in New York City from complications related to ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, which had robbed her of her ability to sing several years earlier, but never diminished her impact on music history. Flack's career reached extraordinary heights in the 1970s, when she became the first artist to win the Grammy Award for Record of the Year in consecutive years. First, for the first time ever, I Saw Your Face in 1973, then for Killing Me Softly with his song in 1974. Both songs topped the Billboard Hot 100 and became defining moments in popular music, showcasing her ability to transform songs into deeply emotional experiences that resonated across generations. Her rich, jazz-influenced vocal style and her interpretation of lyrics with profound emotional intelligence made every song she touched unforgettable. Feel Like Mac in Love, The Closer I Get to You with Donny Hathaway, and Where Is the Love demonstrated her versatility and her ability to convey complex emotions with subtlety and power that few artists could match. Flack was not just a performer but a trained musician who attended Howard University on a music scholarship and was discovered playing piano and singing in a Washington, D.C. nightclub. Her classical training combined with her deep understanding of soul, jazz, and R&B created a unique sound that influenced countless artists across multiple genres, from Alicia Keys to Lauryn Hill. Even after her ALS diagnosis forced her to stop performing, Flack remained active in music education and philanthropy, establishing the Roberta Flack School of Music at the Hyde Leadership Charter School in the Bronx, ensuring that underprivileged children would have access to quality music education and the same opportunities that had transformed her own life. If you're enjoying this tribute to these legendary musicians, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss our coverage of music history and the artists who shaped our world. We're Rise to Fame, and we're dedicated to honoring the legends. Let's continue. Tributes poured in from across the music world, with artists from Whitney Houston's estate to John Legend citing her influence on their work. Quincy Jones, who worked with Flack early in her career, stated that her voice was one of the purest instruments in music history. Her legacy as one of the greatest voices in American music is secure, and her songs will continue to move listeners for generations to come. D'Angelo, born Michael Eugene Archer, passed away on October 14, 2025, at the age of 51. The cornerstone of the neo-soul movement died at a hospital in Richmond, Virginia, after it was revealed he had been privately battling pancreatic cancer, a diagnosis he had kept hidden from all but his closest family and collaborators. D'Angelo's death shocked the music world because he had seemed to be entering a new creative renaissance. He had recently announced plans for a new album and tour, giving no public indication of the illness that would take his life. The revelation that he had been fighting cancer while continuing to write and record music spoke to his dedication to his art and his desire to be remembered for his music rather than his illness. His albums Brown Sugar, released in 1995 when he was just 21 years old, and Voodoo from 2000, redefined modern R&B and helped create the neo-soul movement that would influence a generation of artists. Brown Sugar introduced a fresh, organic sound to R&B that stood in stark contrast to the slick, heavily produced R&B dominating the charts in the mid-1990s. The album featured live instrumentation, vintage production techniques, and D'Angelo's smooth, multi-layered vocals that recalled classic soul while sounding completely contemporary. Songs like Brown Sugar, Cruising, and Lady showcased his ability to write hooks that were simultaneously sexy and sophisticated, commercial and artistic. But it was Voodoo that cemented D'Angelo's status as a generational talent and one of music's most important artists. The album, recorded over nearly 5 years with an incredible roster of musicians including Questlove, Pino Palladino, and Jay Dilla, created a sound that was simultaneously futuristic and deeply rooted in the history of black music. Voodoo's loose, groove-based approach, its willingness to let songs breathe and develop organically, and its sophisticated musicianship set it apart from everything else in contemporary R&B songs like Untitled How Does It Feel, Devil's Pie, and The Line revealed an artist operating at the absolute peak of his creative powers, uncompromising in his artistic vision. The music video for Untitled How Does It Feel, which featured D'Angelo shirtless in a single continuous shot, became iconic but also created complications for his career. The intense focus on his physical appearance, particularly from female fans, made him uncomfortable and contributed to a 14-year gap between Voodoo and his third album, Black Messiah, released in 2014. During those years away from the public eye, D'Angelo struggled with substance abuse and personal demons, gaining weight and retreating from the spotlight that had made him uncomfortable. But his influence never diminished. Artists from Frank Ocean to The Weeknd to Anderson, Pac cited him as a foundational influence on their work. If you've made it this far in our tribute to these 5 legendary musicians, you're clearly someone who values deep, thoughtful content about music history. Please subscribe to Rise to Fame. We're dedicated to telling these stories with the care and depth they deserve. Hit that subscribe button now. When Black Messiah finally arrived in 2014, released suddenly with no advance promotion, it proved that D'Angelo's genius was intact. The album addressed contemporary social issues, particularly police violence and racial injustice, while maintaining the musical sophistication that had defined his earlier work. It earned critical acclaim and a Grammy Award, marking a triumphant return for an artist many had written off. D'Angelo's work with the Soulquarians Collective, an informal group of like-minded musicians including Questlove, Jay Dilla, Common, Erykah Badu, and others, helped define the sound of neo-soul and progressive hip-hop at the turn of the millennium. Their collaborative sessions at Electric Lady Studios in New York produced some of the era's most important albums and established a musical community that valued live instrumentation and organic grooves. His influence on contemporary R&B is impossible to overstate. Artists like Miguel, Daniel Caesar, Lucky Day, and Childish Gambino all follow in the path D'Angelo carved, creating music that values live instrumentation, sophisticated arrangements, and artistic integrity over commercial considerations. The entire alternative R&B movement that has dominated the genre for the past decade traces its roots directly to Voodoo. Tributes emphasized his musical genius and his influence on the culture. Questlove, his longtime collaborator and friend, wrote, "D taught us that slow can be powerful, that groove is everything, that you don't have to compromise your vision for commercial success. He was the most talented musician I ever worked with, and I'll spend the rest of my life missing what we could have created together." Erykah Badu, with whom D'Angelo had a son, wrote simply, "The king is gone, but his music will live forever. He changed everything. He showed us what was possible. Rest in power, Michael." As we reflect on these 5 remarkable lives lost in 2025, we're reminded of the profound impact these artists had on music and culture. Roberta Flack's velvety voice and emotional intelligence, Sly Stone's revolutionary vision of unity through music, Brian Wilson's teenage symphonies to God, Ozzy Osbourne's pioneering heavy metal sound, and D'Angelo's redefinition of modern R&B. Each of these artists fundamentally changed their genres and influenced countless musicians.